It's now time for the Billy C Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit Amazon.com. That's your best bet. And if you're looking to get a signed copy, just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com, and I'll hook you up with that. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by BillyCBoxing.com. Check out the website. I have news and information up there that you may not see anywhere else. So check that out, BillyCBoxing.com. Also, if you're looking to get some stuff, whatever it may be, check out the Blackett Shopping Network. There's a banner right on the front page of BillyCBoxing.com. You get discounts, the whole nine. I got a lot of good stuff, man. Check it out. And today's show is also being brought to us in part by CES Boxing, Classic Entertainment and Sports. We got a special guest coming up. I'll tell you about that in a second. They got a great card happening in Foxwoods, at Foxwoods, this Saturday. You can get some information by visiting our website, BillyCBoxing.com. Click the banner or just go to CESBoxing.com. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame and the 2025 induction weekend, June 20th through the 22nd. I am honored and proud to be part of the 2025 class. So come on down to Florida. Not that I'm in Florida now. I wish I was in Florida now. But come on down to Florida for that weekend. Join me and the rest of the inductees. It's going to be a great time at the Hilton. You could check out all the information on that. Visit our website, BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame banner. It's that simple. All right. Hey, coming up on the show today, first I'll give a shout out to the two. We got Joel stopping in. My man Joel. He's in the chat room right now. So if you're watching or listening live, come on over to the YouTube chat room, and we'll get you a part of the show. And speaking of being part of the show, always remember, you could drop me an email, Billy@Talkin, TalkinBoxing, talkinboxing.com, and I'll read it live on the air. Coming up a little bit later on the show, we got Alex Pierpaoli. We're going to break down all the fights and give you our predictions. Great card happening in Saudi Arabia. But also coming up in a little bit, you know how we've been doing, we started doing a series where we're bringing some of the people from behind the scenes in the sport of boxing. We had Carl King, who's going to come back on, talking about a boxing manager's role. We also have had promoters on and all that stuff. Well, today we have a special guest coming to join us from CES Boxing. And it's my man, Mariano Agmi. He's going to be joining us here in a few minutes. And he's going to tell us, he's a media relations director for CES Boxing. He's going to tell us what that entails, you know. So I'm looking forward to chatting with him. Plus, Alex will join us. And speaking of, I can hardly speak of the English right now. But speaking of Mariano, he's with us right now. Please welcome Mariano Agmi. What's up, brother?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. So you're the media relations director for CES Boxing. Tell my viewers and listeners what exactly you do. I know you don't have your feet up on the desk all day long. That's for sure.
No, definitely not. Thank you. And thank you for having me first, Billy. So there's a number of things we do. CES Boxing has been around for like 32 years. You had Jimmy on last week. And it's not a huge team. It's a small team, and people wear many hats. So as far as media relations director, what I do is I write a lot of the stories on the fighters. So I interview them. I try to get some personal details about them that will humanize them to the people. A lot of whom are aware of them because it may be like a local fighter that a lot of people have heard of growing up and while they were amateurs, and then for other more national stories, this may be the first time you're hearing from them or reading about them. And so that's one of the main things I try to do is to tell the story about the fighters. But we do a little bit of everything. I have sort of my own podcast where I try to give the fighters some shine as well. I cover, local events in the New York area because I'm based right outside New York City. I make sure to include CES boxers in a lot of that coverage as well. I work with trying to get us TV coverage as well. So, last week our card was on DAZN. This week it's on Swerve Combat TV. So that's a part of it, is trying to get CES in front of as many people as we possibly can, whether it's live or on TV.
Yeah, that's great. And where outside of the city are you?
I'm in Maplewood, New Jersey.
Oh, in Jersey. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, I'm from downstate, and every time I hear somebody, I know it's such a hassle to travel sometimes. Like for me, it's easier for me, believe it or not, this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's easier for me to go to Las Vegas than it is to a card in Manhattan. It's like, I'd rather hop on a plane and go to Vegas. But anyway, you guys got a great card coming up Saturday night. And the new main event is actually a kid that I've seen fight before, Francis Hogan. The last list I got from you actually the other day, is it still 14 fights on that card?
Yeah, it's a massive show. And I guess this is an opportunity to tell you the appreciation I have now that I work with the promoter in how the game changes constantly, right? It could change the night before where maybe a fight falls through. So I have a lot of appreciation for guys like Fred Blank on our team who puts a lot of these fighters together, and Patrick Sullivan, who's the director of operations, because things change on a dime and you have to be quick to to fill those slots, right? And it's same as what happens in Riyadh, right, with Shakur Stevenson and his fight falling through and them needing to get a last minute replacement.
Yeah, well, this card looks really good. I mean, Aman Lee is a guy who I've seen fight before. He's on the card. Yeah. Toka Khan is on that card. And it looks like he's I don't know much about his opponent, but those guys from over there are always a tough out. Yeah, this looks like an action-packed card. And well, joining us right now, let's bring Alex Pierpaoli on, because I know you know him, and he goes to a lot of those cards in New England. I haven't gone to one in a bit, and it's like every time you guys schedule, you got to check my schedule first before you schedule your schedule. What's up, Alex?
Hey guys, how you doing?
How are you?
Good. We're just talking about that great card that Mariano has going on with Birchfield over in Foxwood Saturday. It's 14 fights so far scheduled.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't been able to go out for many of the CES shows in a while. I haven't seen Mariano at ringside because I have this thing called job. Now
that sucks, man.
That has made things difficult, but I enjoyed watching the DAZN CES on DAZN this past weekend. That was cool.
Yeah, we had a couple of great performances, and the fight between Kevin Walsh and Ricky De Los Santos was amazing. We knew that was going to probably steal the show, and it really lived up to the expectations.
Yeah, I even like the Oliveira fight, the Fontanez Oliveira fight, because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
and I was a fan of his dad, so seeing him at ringside too was cool, and that was just posed a interesting sort of dilemma, because to watch your son like that, where he was getting deeper and deeper, must have been a difficult thing.
Yeah, and Billy, speaking of storylines, that was the big one with that fight, right? It's imagine you seeing your son fighting, an opponent who's fresher opponent, a rising prospect, and you have to call the action in a neutral manner, right? And I'm sure on the inside, he wanted to throw punches for his son, but he had to keep his cool and talk about it as neutrally as he possibly could.
I've always admired the father-son combos because it's not easy, and sometimes it's from what I've witnessed, it's either or. There's no in between. Like either they are fighting through their son, which they shouldn't be doing, and they think he's invincible, or they're overprotective. You know what I mean? So it's got to be very difficult, and we've had a good number of successful father-son combos, at least from the training point of view, but it's got to be hard to call it.
Yeah, and sometimes it works out really well. And you mentioned Iman Lee earlier, and Iman is someone that I'm a big fan of. He comes from Yonkers, so he's in the New York City area. He came up with the likes of Bruce Shushu Carrington and Richardson Hitchens, who's a world champion at 140 now. So he sparred with all the top guys in the New York area, and his father is his trainer. And they have just a great relationship. You can tell that the chemistry is there. He keeps him calm, and he's not living through his son. He's just helping his son, and you can kind of see it in the smooth way that Iman boxes and carries himself.
Yeah, I mean, like the Mosleys were a good example for the longest time, and even Roy Jones Jr. And his pops when they were together, So I mean, there has been some successful combos for sure, but it's got to be difficult. I personally, I don't know if I could. I mean, I have grandsons, I don't have any sons, but I don't know if I don't know if I could do it. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
A grandson, that would be even harder.
I know.
You want to keep your grandsons just perfect. I couldn't do it with my nephews. One of my nephews plays hockey, and that's sort of difficult to see.
Well, I think with my grandsons, it's difficult for them to see me at the games because I'm always like, come here, listen, this is what you got to do, and it's like, especially the older one, Vinny, he's yeah, okay, and I'm like, I say to my daughter, he never listens to me, but he does, and I try to help him with giving him the edge, because the thing today is the extra time that you can put in, the extra coverage and all of that. I'm sure in boxing, giving them, maybe bringing them to another trainer to get some insight, as long as they're not over possessive. Sometimes, being the father in the corner, or, I've had to deal with fathers that are managing their son's career, and sometimes it's difficult.
Absolutely. You can see Teofimo Lopez is the latest example of that, right? He's going to join Eddie Reynoso's camp, and his father is still going to be involved in the training, but he, at least, it's great that he recognized that maybe his son needed, another look, maybe another opinion in the corner.
And that's smart. That's something that, Tyson Fury, I always said, needed to make a change. And he did, as long as they can all work together, I could see it being very advantageous.
Definitely.
So, hey, Mariano, listen, we got big fights this weekend. Alex and I are going to spend a bunch of time breaking down these fights, but the two fights I wanted to ask you your opinion about
Sure.
was one that I really think I hope, let me rephrase it, I hope steals the show, but it's the heavyweight fight between Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker. What's your thoughts on that one?
I agree with you, and I feel like this card is a really tough one to predict.
Out of 50-50 fights.
Yeah, 7 championship fights, only one that we kind of know, because Shakur is fighting a new opponent, but every other fight is very competitive. And both Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois are coming off, each 2 of their biggest wins. One against Joseph Parker against Deontay Wilder and Zhilei Zhang, and the other against Anthony Joshua, obviously. And, he's had a string of wins, right? He beat Jarrell Miller when he was undefeated, Filip Hrgović. I don't know how Daniel Dubois took so many right hands flush from Filip Hrgović and still won that fight. Yeah. So it's going to be a fight, I think, between the power of Dubois and the boxing skills and brain, I think, of Joseph Parker with Andy Lee in his corner, because I think Andy Lee really understands him and gets the best out of Joseph Parker.
That's a great point. Andy Lee, I think, is really rising as a great trainer that doesn't get the credit. Another guy I always think of when I think of trainers that should be getting more credit is Buddy McGirt. I mean, he's great, and you never hear, you hear the the same old guys. You know, I'm not even going to mention their names. You know, everybody's always saying them, but Buddy McGirt and you know, like what you just said. I mean, yeah, that's great stuff. And that fight, you're right about. If they can teach this kid a little defense, I think he could change the complexion of the heavyweight division. Honestly, with Triple D.
Yeah, but I have never seen someone change psychologically so much from a win as Daniel Dubois did, because as you know, when in the past, you know, when he faced hardship against Joe Joyce or against Alexander Usyk, he seemed to mentally break down. And you can almost see it almost happen against Jarrell Miller. But, you know, he put it back together. He won that fight, and it just did so much for his psyche that he's been unstoppable since.
Well, that's a great point. And you know, if he maintains that attack, that pressure that he put on AJ,
Yeah,
I don't know if there's a heavyweight, including Usyk, that could beat him. And we'll get to that a little later. I don't get mad at me yet, Alex. All right, don't get mad at me yet. But and then finally, Mariano, Artur Beterbiev and Dimitrii Bivol, the rematch. I've been getting a lot of phone calls and emails on this particular fight, what my thoughts are. I'm going to save my thoughts for a little bit later, but what's your thoughts on this fight?
so I think I'm going to go back with my prediction for the first time around, which turned out to be wrong. But I thought that Bivol would you know, he's very intelligent in the ring. We saw that against Canelo Alvarez. And he's a smooth boxer. He does look a little bit awkward in that European style, but he seems to be a good judge of distance. Artur Beterbiev is a freak of nature, you know, in how strong he is. I think that, again, I'm going to bet that maybe youth prevails here. Bivol is a bit younger than Beterbiev. I'm sure he learned a lot from the first experience, that if he was a little bit more active, he could have pulled that fight out. It was a very close fight. So I'm favoring Bivol. I wouldn't be surprised if Beterbiev, you know, wins again, because he hit so hard. He hit so hard in the first fight that Bivol admitted, you know, he blocked a lot of the punches, but his own glove was hitting his face and marking him up. So that was incredible.
You know what? After that fight, if you saw any shots of him the next day, he looked like somebody beat him up with a baseball bat.
Yeah,
you know?
he did.
Isn't that like a Simpsons, one of the Simpsons bullies? Why do you keep hitting yourself?
Yeah. But anyway, Mariano, listen, I know we got you on
before
here.
Mariano goes, could I just throw a question at him? I was just curious. The person that I wish I could see on that card that I'm really enjoying, I saw one of her fights live, was Melanie Costa. She just has that such aggressive style. So she's not in too deep this week, but the other fight that looks really good, aside from the main event, is that Jalen Victor Reynoso fight. That one, I don't know if you guys were talking about that before I came in or not, but I was just wondering if you had anything to say.
No, and I'm glad you brought this up. So Melanie Costa is someone that I've seen sort of mature from the amateurs into the pro scene. I had spoken to Jamie Clampett, who's in the Boxing Hall of Fame, and after her last fight, we were talking about the future of CES boxing when it comes to the females. And Melanie Costa is definitely one of them. She has that aggressive style that you mentioned. It's just fun to watch, right? Her in a fight, and it's a war of wills when she's in the ring. And if your cardio isn't there, if you're not prepared, she's going to drown you. And that's her fighting style. Amelia Moore, who scored a second round knockout last week, is another one of the female stars that are going to, I think, carry the banner from Jamie Clampett. As far as the other fights, what's great about the matchmaking here is the amount of turf wars that Fred Blank is able to put together. Looking at the main event, Francis Hogan is like sort of the young rising middleweight against Kiari Gray, who's very motivated for this fight. I've heard a lot of people tell me, look, it is 50-50. Records shouldn't fool you, because Kiari is very motivated. He took exception to Francis Hogan saying that he'll be like a tornado who rips through his trailer park. And so Kiari wants to show him that he's been training since November, apparently, for this fight. So he's going to be very well prepared. And as you mentioned, Victor Reynoso, he's got a great story. He's from the Dominican Republic originally, settled in Rhode Island, works at a maximum security prison, very sort of a spiritual man, like a lot of character in the way he carries himself. And him fighting against Jana Renaud, who only has one loss. And so that's Springfield, Mass, against Providence, Rhode Island in that one. It should be a great atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I love, you know, the multiple times I've had Jimmy on this show over the years. That's what I love about him, and it's a dying breed, and that's what, you know, boxing was all about. People always say, "Oh, how can we get boxing back to the way it was?" Blah blah blah. Well, it starts right there when you can cultivate those turf wars, so to speak, or town versus town, or you know, you got to get the interest first, and that's what I love what Jimmy does. And I'll tell you, I got some ideas I'm going to talk to you about as soon as you're done. I know you're going to be busy with this weekend, but something I think you guys are going to want to do, and I think it'll work out for everybody. So, but anyway, I'd love to have you back on and talk about, you know, not about your card, you know, like not when you have to talk about your card, but when we could talk about other stuff, you know.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to do that. Love to show you guys.
The thing I tell you, after that Jimmy interview, I'm going to be every fight I go to from now on, I'm going to be looking under the ring for skunk.
I tell you what, I know now I'm always, you know, I'll always be like, what's that smell? I bet you I know what.
You know, I spend a lot of time with Jimmy, like, you know, leading up to a fight, and we talk a lot. And there's always a new story that impresses me more than the next with Jimmy. It's just so many stories that he has that he really does need to write a book, I think.
That one's great. Yeah, that's a screenplay. That's a movie right there.
The truth of the matter is he's been in the business so long. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah, and you know, but yeah, he's a treasure. He's a boxing treasure. But,
83 years old, and he has more energy than most of us younger guys that are on the team.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, somebody told me that recently, and I didn't think that. It's, you know, I mean, time flies. First time I met him was, you know, 25 years ago, you know, so yeah. But
he's as passionate as he was when he was young. He's as passionate about boxing as he was when he was a young man. He's, you know, I think he single-handedly right now is keeping New England boxing alive, with or without TV. You know, it doesn't matter to him.
Definitely. Well, you know, I just was shocked that, you know, he's in his 80s, and I've stayed in my 30s. I don't know, but
what's going on there?
Yeah. All right, Mariano, it was
guys.
a pleasure, and I hope to have you back on soon. All right.
Thank you for having me. Bye, guys.
All right,
good to see you.
All right. Yeah, that was he's a great kid. I want to have him back on, and you know, I'm real pissed that I'm not going to that card, but in any event, we got a great card I want to talk about now. But before we get into that, I want to bring up two things. Some fights from last weekend. The Barbosa-Catterall fight. I thought it was a great fight. It was a real close fight. In case you guys missed it, Barbosa won the fight, 115-113, twice for him, and one of the judges had it the same score for Catterall. I loved the fight. But I'll tell you, the fight that stole that card was the Reese Bellotti against Michael Gomez fight. Did you get a chance to watch the card, Alex?
I'm not sure I saw that fight, but I did watch the Catterall fight. That doesn't ring a bell for me.
Well, this one was kind of a grudge match fight, and Bellotti was bleeding. He got a real bad cut, but this kid Gomez, you know, was dropped a couple of times from body shots. And finally was counted out. But
okay, yeah, that body shot one. Yes, I did see that one too.
Yeah,
that was a good fight.
Yeah, that was very entertaining. And then you know, kudos to ESPN. They put on a pretty good show the other night with the Keyshawn Davis winning the WBO lightweight title over Dennis Baranchuk to improve to 13-0 with 9 knockouts. I was impressed because I got to be honest. I thought, you know, he was just another one of these BSers, but he backed up what he said, man.
Yeah, and that was body shots too. Yeah, that was impressive. I thought the Catterall-Barbosa fight, I expected it to be more of a brawl. It stayed very tactical, but you're right. It was competitive throughout, and they were both very busy. But it was much more strategic than it was like a brawl. And yeah, I agree with the decision. I thought Catterall
when we talked about that fight, I said Catterall has to start out quicker. He's got a bad habit of giving up the first few rounds, and I think that proved to lose the fight for him.
Oh,
Catterall.
You mean Barbosa had to start quicker?
No, Catterall
won, didn't he?
No, Barbosa won.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, Barbosa.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. My bad.
Barbosa won the fight, and
Oh, yeah, I think part of it was the southpaw factor was that he had a hard time dealing with.
who, Catterall?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I think he was coming on. He
I didn't expect him. I didn't expect him to, or no, I think Catterall was, my bad. Never mind. Catterall was the southpaw.
Listen, Catterall. I was going to say, well, he switches, but
I
Catterall.
was fighting a little bit of a flu this weekend, obviously.
Yeah, whatever. Hey, listen, hold yourself accountable. Stop making excuses, all right? But listen, the thing was the fight against Josh Taylor. Both fights against Josh Taylor with Catterall, the same thing happened. Where he starts off slow, and then you think he's out. We were talking about this last week, and you think he's out of gas, and then all of a sudden he starts coming on. He just needs to let his hands go a little more, And I still, I mean, this is the beauty of the British boxing scene. I mean, he's 30 wins with 2 losses now. That's not going to affect his public appeal at all. But anyway, the 2 other good fights on that Keyshawn Davis card. So I give kudos to ESPN. And one other thing before we start breaking down these fights, I wanna plant the seed for everybody watching and listening. Next week, we're going to have 2 topics that you're going to definitely want to watch this show to hear. The first one, actually, my man Coach, who's we're going to hire him as our program manager because he forces me. He forces me. He makes threats to me, Alex. This guy, I don't know if you've ever met Coach, but he's a pretty big guy, and he threatens me. All right, that he's going to break my head and rip my arm, tear my arms from my body and stuff. He says that crazy shit. But he said he's a nutcase. No, I'm only kidding. Coach is a great guy. But he wants to talk about the returning the 15 rounds controversy, which I think is a great topic. And we'll talk about that. And the other thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm so sick of it, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is not the best ever. And I'm going to give whoever watches and listens all the reasons why. And so make sure you tune in next week for that. And you have to play hooky so you can join in that too. But anyway, let's start off with this great card from Saudi Arabia. The first fight we're going to talk about is kind of a letdown fight because of the last-minute substitution. But Shakur Stevenson going up against Josh Padley. Didn't hear Floyd Schofield, which I thought was a great opponent for Stevenson. As a matter of fact, I've said before that Schofield, Tank Davis should be fighting Schofield because he's the top contender in the division that Tank Davis has a title, but instead Tank Davis chose to fight a smaller guy. But Shakur Stevenson steps in with Josh Padley, last-minute sub. And by the way, Schofield was in Saudi Arabia when he became ill, so it wasn't like he pulled out of this fight. He had every intention of fighting. You got to give credit where credit's due for Josh Padley to be ready to step in. We're talking about the same weight class and everything, Alex. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I think, the fact that when did he get the notice? Was it just like yesterday or the day before?
2 days. Yeah, 2 days.
2 days. That's not great. Even if he was in the gym, he's definitely not prepared for one of the best fighters in the world.
But he had to have been in the gym because how could he make weight?
Right. He must have been. I'm sure he's probably in the gym shape, that kind of a thing, where he can make weight and stuff, but he's not hasn't had a camp preparing for Shakur Stevenson. So, I think that maybe Stevenson will get a knockout, because he's certainly always battling that, that idea of being a boring fighter, just cruising to one decision win after another. So here's his chance to whack a guy out who's a little unprepared. That said, Josh Padley, he looks good on paper in terms of, he doesn't have many knockouts. That's for sure. He's only got 4 KOs. And over the quality of opponents, you'd like to see it a little higher, but yeah, it's a huge leap in class for him. So yeah, I don't see him having much of a shot.
Well, Josh Padley is 15-0 with 4 knockouts. He's ranked number 29 by the computer. And interesting enough, the IBF has him ranked at number 10. The WBC has him ranked at number 12. And the WBO has him ranked at number 7. He's not ranked at all for the WBA or in the ring ratings. Now, this guy's best fight, in my opinion, was his last one.
Right.
He won a 12-round decision over Mark Chamberlain. And if that name sounds familiar, that was one of those guys that His Excellency loved, Mark Chamberlain. So this kid, he can fight. He comes to brawl. He doesn't get many knockouts, like you said, with 4 knockouts. He's only had 90 rounds as a pro, and he's 29 years old. Now he steps in the ring with a 27-year-old southpaw in Shakur Stevenson, who's 22-0 with 10 knockouts, ranked number 2 in the world. And the Ring magazine has him at 2 in the world by the computer. The Ring magazine has him ranked at number 4, and he's actually the WBC World Lightweight champion. He won his title over Edwin Dos Santos in November of 2023. His last fight, he won a unanimous decision over Artur Harayutian in July of last year. I think he's overrated, Alex. I really do. I mean, people talk about this cat saying how great he is. I think he's extremely boring. People will tell me, that's the sweet science. No, it's not. It's not. The sweet science doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a boring fighter. At times you need to take a chance or two if you want to have the fanfare and make the money. Because let's face it, Alex, if you're not an exciting fighter, you're not going to draw. And if you're not drawing, you're not making the money you could be making. Now, I remember my man Larry Hazard was talking about this kid, Shakur Stevenson, before he even turned pro. And he said on this show multiple times that Shakur Stevenson's the real deal and he's going to be a world champion someday. And obviously it happened. But I'm with you. I'm picking Shakur Stevenson in this fight. And, as much as I hope he knocks out Padley, I think we're going to see the same style from Stevenson, dude.
Ugh. Yeah, that would be disappointing if it ends up being just a 12-round snore. But
a typical Stevenson fight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I don't know. I think he comes up with a KO in this fight. These guys they hear the criticism, so this is his time to kind of shut people's mouths with an opponent that is sort of a low risk opponent.
But he's got a good chin, this guy, Patty. He does.
Yeah, but he could still stop him just on accumulation of blows. I mean, Padley is going to be in there against somebody speedier than he's ever seen. So, yeah, it's
but you got to be aggressive. So Stevenson has to move in. Stevenson has to go for the knockout. His last two fights, he said that he was going to, put on more of a show, and he doesn't. I don't know if he just that's his style, I mean.
Oh, and I think that's sort of the same situation as the main event, is that Bivol is in that similar situation in that, in order
you don't jump to that fight yet. Okay, I have structure
when
here.
You have a guy with the skills is sort of forced in order to make the fight, especially when they're so closely matched. You've got to, you can't just dance away all night, because at some point, it's about landing clean punches. So you need to get in there and engage. So I think Stevenson should have no problem doing that.
I know somebody that danced around all night for 50 wins. So, all right. This fight,
I wonder who you could be talking about.
I don't know. Tune in next week and you'll find out. But all right, this fight. Now, with the exception of that fight, because of the last minute sub, all these fights, in my opinion, are fantastic fights. They're 50-50 fights. And I think it's only like 29. I think the pay-per-view, and I could be wrong, but I think it's $29.95. You know, I mean, you can't, you know, I mean, I love what's going on with this. Geez, you know what I meant to do? My man Augie from Riverhead sent me some photos of this month's Ring magazine. And I'll tell you, they're hitting it out of the park with the Ring magazine. Really good quality photos and paper and everything else. It's just the extra cost to have it shipped. And I thought it was being shipped from Saudi Arabia. It's coming from Connecticut. He told me it's being printed in Connecticut, and they still charge $80 on top of the.
What the Ring magazine is printed in Connecticut.
Yeah, well, it's being shipped from Connecticut, or it's being printed in Connecticut. That's what he said on that it said on the magazine. You know, the subscription was like 20. It turns out to be like $20 a copy.
Wow.
You know, with the shipping costs. You know,
wow.
So anyway, Joshua Buatsi going up against Callum Smith. Very intriguing fight between these two guys. You know, Callum Smith is the elder at 34 years old by a couple of years. Buatsi's 31. And Buatsi's actually got a belt. He's the WBO interim world light heavyweight champion in this. They're very similar in size. Buatsi's 6'2". Callum Smith is 6'3". The reach advantage falls with Callum Smith at 78 versus 74.5. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I am going with the youth of Buatsi over the experience of Callum Smith, even though, you know, Callum Smith definitely has the much deeper record, a lot more experience. I like what we've seen from Buatsi so far, and I do think that, you know, this is going to be one of those sort of reach for the golden ring type fights, but I think he is ready for it. And, you know, you got to admire that. So I do think, you know, it's unfortunate that it's one of those interim belts, but whatever. We know at light heavyweight, we know who the kings are, and we're going to see that in the main event. So, you know, and I think the other thing that would be unfortunate, but maybe not too bad, if we get another close fight in the main event, maybe, you know, we see a rubber match between those two guys, and then you get the winner of Buatsi versus Callum Smith against David Benavidez. That could end up being a sort of consolation prize that develops from Saturday. But and if it does, that's not an awful consolation prize.
Well, I think. Well, I personally, I think that the loser of the main event could be a David Benavidez opponent, depending upon who it is. But I'll get to that in a second. But Callum Smith, you see, my difficulty picking this fight is I'm not sure how many miles is on Callum Smith. He's fought a lot, you know, 164 rounds compared to 111 with Buatsi, but there's so many more fights. Buatsi is 19-0 with 13 knockouts. Callum Smith is 30-2. He was stopped once with 22 knockouts. Now, you know, his last fight, he stopped the journeyman in Carlos Galvan in November of last year. So he's, you know, as fresh as he can be. You know, only the last fight was a few months back. The computer ranks Callum Smith at number 6. The WBO has him at number 7, and the Ring magazine has him at number 6. When you look at Buatsi, the computer has him at number 4. Ring magazine has him at number 3. In his last fight, he won a really close split decision over Willie Hutchinson in September of last year. Now, Willie Hutchinson was an up-and-coming fighter, you know. So, and this is also a kind of a you know, bragging rights for the UK. They're both British fighters, and this is a tough one for me to pick. The height advantage really doesn't matter. It's only an inch for Smith. but the reach advantage. So I think this fight's going to boil down to if Joshua Putasi can get inside and start testing Callum Smith to see if he's, see if he's still the Callum Smith of old. And then, no disrespect to Callum Smith, but was he overrated when he was fighting? I mean, I don't know. I
think he has had his head thumped by Beterbiev. So I mean, I think this will be more so than his last fight. This will be a real test to see has he recovered from that. So I think we end up seeing that this could be every one of these fights could end up stealing the show. This one could be definitely a good bout. I think Buatsi beats him. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to the distance, and maybe it's a little controversial. I mean, because even the cards were a little bit all over the place with Buatsi Hutchinson too, and I thought he dropped him twice. I think it said that Buatsi scored 2 knockdowns, and I think one of the cards was way out of whack with that fight. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the other thing that's cool about this is a lot of these guys have been they're so active. I mean, a lot of these guys, their last fight was the Dubois Joshua undercard. So
it's what I love about Turkey Al-Rashid.
Yeah,
he's making these fights happen.
Exactly. So I think I don't know. I like Buatsi. I'll say Buatsi by close decision, possibly split decision. I guess if I had to pick, I'll say split decision.
In this particular fight, my heart says Buatsi, but I have a feeling that Callum Smith's experience and the fact that he's been in some tougher fights, and his last fight didn't really put much mileage on him. He was coming off of little what's the word? I'm losing. I can't even. He didn't fight in a while.
Layoff.
So little layoff. There you go. But
layoff.
I think
come on, layoff. It's what your boy's been doing for a month.
but I'm gonna go with Smith just to spite you. All right, next fight is another tough one. Hamaz Shiraz sounds like it should be a movie, but against Carlos Shazam,
a wine
against Carlos Adames. Adames is the WBC World Middleweight Champion, and he's 30 years old. And he's got a record of 24 wins and 1 loss, 18 of his wins coming by knockout. And he's got a knockout ratio of 75%. The computer ranks him at number 5, even though he's a WBC champ. And Ring has him at number 3. He's not the Ring champion. And Shiraz, he's younger at 25, 5 years younger. And he's also substantially taller at 6'3" versus 5'11", and he's undefeated 21-0 with 17 knockouts. The computer has him at number 2. The Ring magazine has him at number 2. The WBC has him at number 1. He's not rated in the other 3 sanctioning bodies. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I like Shiraz, the younger, busier guy. I think Shiraz is definitely one of those guys who, he's somebody to watch. So I see Shiraz by KO. As much as it's a good matchup, I think it's a better looking matchup on paper than it will be playing out. It's always nice to be wrong, especially when you get a good fight. But I think Shiraz wins pretty big and wins by KO.
He's a power puncher. Like I said, he's got almost an 81% knockout ratio. And he's busted onto the scene, and he is from the UK. I've seen him fight several times. I thought they might have been rushing him a little bit. He does fight a little awkwardly. And sometimes when these power punchers get into these fights, they start, becoming one-dimensional and just reverting back to I can knock him out. His last 3 fights, all by stoppage. He stopped Liam Williams in February of last year. He stopped Austin Williams in June of last year. And then he fought in September of last year in his last fight against Tyler Denny. So he's been extremely busy stopping all of those guys.
Destroyed.
What's that?
He destroyed Denny.
Yeah. As far as Carlos Adames, his last fight was in June. I'm sorry. His last fight was against Terrell Gashua in June of last year. He won a unanimous decision, but he stopped Julian Williams in June of 2023. It's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with you. I think Shiraz is going to become the new WBC world champion. I think his power punching is going to carry him through. I think Carlos Adames hasn't fought a guy with the pop. Although he has fought some experienced fighters, he hasn't fought a guy with the pop that Shiraz has. I'm picking Shiraz as well. This is another interesting fight. Virgil Ortiz Jr. Going up against Israel Madrimov. Madrimov, is a guy that was 10-0. He was the world champion, and then he had to fight Terrence Crawford. But he fared well against Terrence Crawford. He looked big. He looked strong. Some people think that fight was closer than it was. When you look at Virgil Ortiz, this is a guy that I don't know, man. I think that he's more. There's more people's. He talks more than he does against the higher guys. He's been talking a lot of smack lately. He's 26 years old, so he's 4 years younger. He's undefeated at 22-0 with 21 knockouts. He's another one of these interim champions. He's the interim WBC champ. The computer has him ranked at number 3. The Ring magazine has him at number 5. And, of course, because he's an interim champ, he's not rated in the other sanctioning bodies. His last fight was a close fight. It was a majority decision in August of last year against Boachuk. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I think this one, it could be a really good one. I like Madrimov because I thought he was very impressive against Crawford. I didn't think he won, but I definitely thought that he gave, one of the very best fighters on earth a lot of wrinkles and all he could handle. So it would be cool to see him, do something impressive against somebody like Virgil Ortiz. Virgil Ortiz, one of the hardest punchers in the sport. He fought 3 times in 2024. It was only 14 rounds because he scored 2 first-round knockouts and then a 12-round majority decision. So, I think this could end up being, you have, just like in the main event, you have the skills versus the chills, in the sense of the skilled boxer versus the big power puncher. So, I guess I will lean. Usually, I like when there's a matchup like that, as much as I might be rooting for the chills guy, it's hard to vote against the skills guy. Because, so I think in this one, I'll go with Ortiz. Ortiz by decision.
He's going to be tested in this fight.
Definitely.
Madrimov is a tough out. And we know that now, I mean, this is going to be a good, what's the word, test, to see really it's a gauge on how Terrence Crawford, where his power punching. Remember, this guy was moving all around the ring. He neutralized Terrence Crawford. Okay. Yeah. Now, granted, Terrence Crawford was much smaller, and it looked it in the ring, even though they weighed the same at the weigh-in. His body, Madrimov's body, just looked thicker. But he is stepping in the ring with a guy that's in the same weight class, and he's stepping in the ring with a guy that's 2 inches taller, and he's stepping in with a guy that's got almost a 96% knockout ratio. He's 22-0 with 21 of his wins coming by knockout. I think the lack of rounds that you bring up might come into play here, and the Boachuk fight, which was his only fight that went the distance, which was his last fight in August of 24. He didn't fight since then. So it's not like, he got more time in the ring. And Majermov is better than Boachuk, in my opinion. He looked better. It's a tough one to pick. The computer ranks Ortiz number 3. The computer ranks Majermov number 4. The ring ratings had Ortiz at number 5, and the ring ratings have Majermov at number 2. So it's an extremely tough fight to pick. And, the powers that be are telling you to go with Ortiz. But I think I'm going the other way in this fight. I'm going Majermov because I think that, he's got something to prove. I think he feels he beat Terrence Crawford, to be honest with you. And I don't think Virgil Ortiz is better than Terrence Crawford. So if Virgil Ortiz blows out Majermov, I'll be singing a different tune. I'll be thinking Terrence Crawford shouldn't be going after Canelo. But I'm picking Majermov in this fight. I think it's going to be an upset.
Yeah, I think that this could be the one of them that I regret. But I'll say Ortiz decision.
Coach is saying Ortiz in 4 rounds.
Wow.
I don't know, man. You think Ortiz punches harder than Crawford? I mean, and Majermov, he had a blueprint to keep Crawford off him. You don't think that, listen, no disrespect to Ortiz, but he does not have the boxing skill that Crawford has. I'm sorry. But maybe Ortiz will just go in after him. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, there's that saying, Billy C, styles make fights.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Another hit. I mean, all these fights are so close, and this one is no different. Zhilei Zhang going up against Agent Cabiel.
This one's gonna be fun.
This is gonna be fun because Zhang, or I know they say it looks like Zhang, but they pronounce it Zong. But he's so damn slow, this guy. I could, he's throwing a punch. I go and I fill up my scotch. I come back and it's just about getting to the target. But he's proven me. He's 27-2. He's only lost twice. 22 knockouts. People say, fighters that have fought him or sparred him say it's freaky. How powerful this guy is, once the punch finds its target, 27-2, destroyed Wilder in his last fight in 5 rounds in June. But he's going up against KBL, who doesn't do anything but win. He's 25-0 with 17 knockouts. Every time you think that, okay, he's met his match, he comes back and wins. And his last fight is a great indication of that because he fought Frank Sanchez, who was highly regarded. That Frank Sanchez should have never fought that fight because he clearly was injured. He couldn't move in that fight. And KBL took advantage of it. Who do you like in this one?
Cabiel is somebody that I definitely like. He's one of these guys like Shiraz. These are guys that are just, as Casey Kasem used to say, number 5 with a bullet. They are on the rise, and they're both big power punchers. So that's always fun. And if you're like me, the part of why I got into boxing was I love comic books and comic book fights, and heavyweights like this give you great big rock'em sock'em type fights. So this fight, I think, is going to be a fun one. I like, and because like you're saying, Zhang is somebody who's there to be hit. So I like Ajit Cabiel to, do a little fistic graffiti all over his face. And probably, he's got a good chin. So it could go a long while. But I don't know. There's going to be a lot of a lot of concussive force exchanged in that fight. So I like Caballel to win. I'm tempted to say by KO just because, you know, God help getting hit that much by a big, strong heavyweight. But, you know, he's a prize fighter. So maybe it goes, maybe Zong can stand up to it and it goes the distance. But I like Caballel by lopsided UD.
Well, you know, Zong is a guy, first of all, he's a southpaw, and, you know, he's 3 inches taller, and he's probably going to be 50 pounds heavier. He's 9 years older than KBL. I look at KBL, and even though he's got 25 fights under his belt, 125 rounds, which is actually 15 rounds more than Zhang, I, I see him as a fresher fighter. The computer ranks KBL at number 3. The Ring magazine has him at number 5. He's ranked in the WBA at number 6, and the WBC and WBO both have him ranked at number 1. No rating in IBF. That's what pisses me off about these sanctioning bodies. You got a guy ranked number 1 in 2 of the 4, and the other guy, he's not even in our top 15. I mean, come on, you know. Now, when you look at Zong, he's the computer has him at number 10. The Ring has him at number 4. So the computer has him ranked, 7 spots worse than KBL, but the Ring has him ranked 1 spot higher. WBA has him at number 8. WBC has him at number 2. WBO has him at number 1. You know, like I said earlier, his last fight was stopping Wilder in 5. He finally caught up to Wilder, but Wilder doesn't have the skill set KBL has. I'm with you on this one. I'm going with AJ KBL. I think that he's too busy. He's too agile. And if he fights a smart fight and doesn't try to go for the knockout, I think that he wins a unanimous decision over Zong. So I'm with you on that one. And probably, I hate to say it, but this is my fight that I'm looking forward to the most. As much as I want to see the Bivol Beterbiev rematch, I can't wait to see Danny Dubois against Joseph Parker. I really think that Danny Dubois, and this is a great test for him. I think that if Danny Dubois can win this fight, I really think that Daniel Dubois is the future of the heavyweight division. He's young. He's only 27 years old. And, you know, I felt that they rushed him a little bit, and he seems to have become better. Joseph Parker, 35 wins, 23 coming by knockout, 3 losses in which he was stopped once. The only guys that beat him was Anthony Joshua, Dillian White, who both went the distance with him, but Joe Joyce was the guy who stopped him. He's ranked at number 7 by the computer. Ring magazine has him at number 3, and the IBF has him at number 5. He's actually another one of these interim champions. He's the WBO interim champ at 33 years old. His last fight was a win, close fight over Zong. He won a majority decision, and he was dropped, I think, twice in that fight, right? At least once.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I think it was twice. He beat Wilder in 23, and he beat Chisora twice for some of his big wins. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this too. I do think that this is going to be a very good fight. I like Daniel Dubois quite a bit. As much as I like Usyk, there's part of me that's sort of heartbroken that this can't be Daniel Dubois' era, because I knew he was going to beat Anthony Joshua, and was just so thrilled to see the way he did it. He's a guy that, you know, he's learned from the loss to Usyk. Like Mariano was saying, He's had
Mariano, I'll interrupt you for a second. Mariano made a great point about the confidence.
Yeah.
And I think that I love that point. That's why we're going to have him back on just to talk boxing. But the point that he made about him having the confidence and then putting on that performance with AJ really hit home. Now the big question is Mariano right? Because if he comes out and fights the same way, then yeah, it's a home run. If he comes out fighting differently, then I'm gonna question his mental approach.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think it just goes to show you that when you take on great fights and you lose, there's no shame in that, and you can learn from that. And to lose to Alexander Usyk, and of course that one had the controversy too, about was it a low blow, was it not? Hey, it was a low blow. That said, he did sort of cave in under the massive pressure that one of the best fighters in the world kept putting on him. But he's become a better fighter because of it. So that's awesome to see that. And I think if they were to fight again, or when they do fight again, you're going to see a different Daniel Dubois in there. I like him to beat Joseph Parker, because even though Parker, I think, is a good boxer, I think Dubois hits very hard. And I think that, the old Mike Tyson saying there, everyone has a plan until they get hit. And I think that if Dubois is able to connect, I think that he could start closing, shutting off escape routes, shrinking the ring, and, really putting the screws to Joseph Parker. I'd like Dubois by a knockout. He's another guy that I think is on the rise. So I'm taking that as a knockout. Dubois is a KO win too. So so far I have 3 guys winning by KO: Dubois, Shiraz, and Stevenson.
Joseph Parker I love Joseph Parker, first of all. He's a quality fighter. He's a smart fighter, and he can box. Coach is in here making a comment. He said, he's playing underdog. He says Parker was down twice and got up against Zhang to win. But the difference here, Coach and Alex and whoever else listens, is the fact that Zhang is so slow. And, Parker was able to steal those rounds. He was fighting extremely cautious against Zhilei Zhang in that fight. Now, Daniel Dubois, I've always liked. I thought he was rushed. And quite honestly, the kid needs to learn some defense. He took way too many shots, even against AJ. He needs to do defense, learn defense. He needs to be able to not rely on the fact that he could take the punch, because that's going to stop someday. But I'm with you. His last fight, he destroyed AJ in 5 rounds in September of last year. He stopped to Hergervik in June of last year, and December of 23, he stopped Miller. He lost to Usyk that same year. But since then, he's come back with 3 knockout wins. I do think he's the future of the division. The computer has him at number 2. The Ring magazine has him at number 2. Joseph Parker, the computer has him at number 7. Ring has him at number 3. I'm picking Daniel Dubois. I think it's going to boil down to one thing. If Daniel Dubois fights Joseph Parker the way he fought Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker's not going to be able to stay out of the way the way he was able to stay out of the way of power punching Zhang, because Zhang is so much slower and methodical, and just the movement of Daniel Dubois and that Mike Tyson-esque style he came out when he fought AJ, that's his style. And that's the way he should continue to fight until he can't do that anymore. I'm picking Dubois, and I, too, am picking Dubois by a knockout.
Nice.
Here's the big fight, the rematch, which, at one point was questionable. Artur Beterbiev going up against Dimitrii Bivol. Artur Beterbiev is the undisputed world light heavyweight champion. He's got all 4 of the major sanctioning titles, plus the Ring Magazine belt. Computer ranks him at number 1. Look, he's a freak. His last fight against Bivol was the first time he ever heard scorecards read in one of his fights. He's 21-0 with 20 knockouts. He's 40 years old, so he's 6 years older than Bivol. You know, people keep asking me about this fight, and you know, I don't see. You know, I mean, look, everybody, we've talked about both of these guys. Everybody knows about them. You know, the last fight, Bivol lost a decision. Up to that point, he never lost, and Beterbiev never lost. He won that decision. The thing is this, and you know, I opened my eyes to it when John Iceman Scully was on the show, and he pointed out that Artur has a really good jab. And up until that point, I was like most other people, just thinking he's a power puncher, but he's not. He's a smart boxer. Yes, he's got the power, but he also has a jab, and he cut the ring off superbly against Bivol, who's a technician in the ring, regarded as one of the best boxers the sport has to offer today. People keep saying to me, "Oh, well, he's so smart. You know, he's gonna change his way, and he's figured him out. It took him the 12 rounds. Now he figured out Beterbiev." I disagree with that. I think that Bivol is Bivol. I think we're going to see round 13. Round 1 is going to become round 13. But what's going to happen in this fight, in my opinion, is that Beterbiev is going to be more confident that he can hurt Bivol, and I think we're going to see what we thought we were going to see in the first fight happen in this rematch. I think Artur Beterbiev is going to come out more aggressive. I don't see Bivol coming out more aggressive. He's going to try to come out the same way. He wants to catch him, counterpunch him, you know, but he's got to be set up. He's got to be in a position to land a shot. And the fact that he's moving and trying to stay away from Beterbiev's power is just playing into Artur's hands, because he's so good at cutting off the ring. I'm going to take this pick first, and I think that Beterbiev is going to win this fight again. I'm not going to predict knockout or decision. I know he's going to win. I have a feeling he's going to stop him. I think maybe some cuts or something are going to stop it. He's going to win by TKO. And I just want to touch base on what we were talking about before, because this fight, if Beterbiev wins this fight, he's 40 years old. There's nothing left in this sport for him to prove. If it were me, I would retire. And if I was part of his team, I would retire as the undisputed, no BS world light heavyweight champion. You got to assume that his fight against Bivol and now this rematch has put him in a financial position that I'm not so sure he was in prior. But I think there's nothing left for him, and that he would retire, which will end up becoming chaos in the light heavyweight division, because all those belts will start going to other people. And this is why I feel that Bivol will be in a good position himself, even though he loses again. This is if it turns out the way I am, because Bivol could fight David Benavidez for a big money fight. I think that's the fight that you're going to see, Benavidez against Bivol, if Bivol loses. Because if he wins, it might happen what you suggest, that maybe they have a third go at it, Beterbiev and Bivol. But I think if Bivol loses, that sets up Benavidez fight. And even if Benavidez beats Bivol, he's got the Canelo fight. We've already heard that fight's going to take place in 2026 in Saudi Arabia as part of Turki Al-Rashid's deal with Canelo. Canelo wants that fight. He wants to avenge that loss, assuming he beats Terence Crawford, which I don't think he is. My prediction, Beterbiev is going to win this fight. I think I'm not predicting knockout or decision, but I would not be surprised if this one is won by stoppage because of a busted up Bivol. What's your thoughts?
All I could say is there's a lot of B's in that whole Beterbiev, Bivol, and Benavidez bought broccoli at Best Buy.
I know.
I will say that. Well, first, I do want to mention that I did watch a bunch of the promotional stuff last night, and I rewatched the first fight. And just one of the things that it does sort of irk me a little bit, but it's not surprising in this sort of really very corporatized, commodified, ahistorical world we live in. The way they keep saying this is the greatest card ever. No, it's the greatest card that could probably be made today. I just brought up a card because there was one, the card Gerald McClellan versus Julian Jackson. If you look at some of the fights on that card, it was Julio Cesar Chavez versus Frankie Randall, Azuma Nelson versus Jesse James Leija, Simon Brown versus Terry Norris, Ricardo Lopez versus Kerman Guardia. So this is a throwback card. Right. And it's a great fight card. Awesome. It's wonderful that Turki Alashek is giving this to boxing fans. And especially, like you're saying, we're building towards something because so many of these guys fought in September. So this is great. It's great. It's wonderful. But to call it the best fight ever, come on. We need a little context here.
It's the best card in a long time.
It's the best card in a long time. And it's one of the best cards you could make today, which is wonderful. It's wonderful.
I think that's what Turki Alashek is.
I mean, that's you don't have to say it's the greatest fight card ever. Why do you have to? I don't know. Anyway, that's just my personal gripe.
That's the way people. That's the way boxing fans
that's
are.
The way, that everybody has to act like that. This is the greatest thing ever. No, it's just the greatest thing today. That's enough. We live in the now. We don't live in the ever.
Calm down. Stop throwing things around. The cats are afraid. I see the cats running around there. They're getting nervous.
They're going to freak out. They live in the now. So many times in rematches, the guy who won the first time is going to win easier. This is a little bit of an interesting thing, kind of like the Golovkin-Canelo fights where, there's controversy about the guy who won the first time. I thought Beterbiev pulled it out because I thought he had at least two, arguably three, because the 10th round I thought was close. The 11th and 12th were all his. Now, granted, boxing isn't scored that way. The judges don't sit there and look at all their cards and say, well, I owe Beterbiev a round. I owe Bivol a round. Because when they score each round, they give those cards away to the referee. So they don't even unless they have great memories, they don't remember who they gave round 3 to or round 4 to. So I do think that the fact that Bivol faded, or at least spent the last 2 rounds backpedaling, we're not going to see that this time.
What? I tell you what. Let me interrupt you. You know what else we're not going to see? That we got 2 people talking about it in the chat room right now. Dubois, sick, got with Schofield. He's not fighting.
Oh, what a bummer!
That is a bummer.
Sucks.
Anyway,
that's the downside about boxing. Is that little line that you see on fight posters, all bouts subject to change without notice.
Yeah. Anyway, go back to who you
wonder. What is there? A lot of diarrhea in Saudi Arabia.
No, but you know how the sickness goes.
Yeah, I mean that. One of the place you get sick is on an airplane, so you got to get there by an airplane.
I know. Well, hey, listen. All my fight when we used to travel, especially big fights, we always used to want to go there 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, who's your pick?
Remember when we went to Canelo versus Danny Jacobs? I got sick the first night I got there. I spent the entire 4 days on the floor, the bathroom floor of the MGM Grand.
I know. I forgot you were there.
It's awful. Yeah, I forgot I was there.
Yeah.
When I checked out, I was like, boy, this was the best bathroom ever.
Yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to been the maid in that.
No, me neither. So anyway, hopefully Beterbiev and Bivol are not sick. I think Bivol has more to work with because he is the skilled guy. he is the young guy. And we already know, we have already seen like a pound for pound great performance out of him in what he did to Canelo. So you know this guy can pull it out of the hat, pull magic out of the hat. That said, he is in there against a nightmare creature in terms of punching power. I don't know if one of the things that there is out there, there's a clip of him working out in the gym of Beterbiev working he says he doesn't even like to hurt people. It's like, really? Well, you're awfully good at it.
well, I heard he's trying to hurt Bivol this time.
Yeah, so I think we, at least one of these guys is on the deck in this fight. Maybe more than once. I think this one's going to be a meaner, more aggressive fight. I like Bivol to win because, like I was saying before about the skills versus the chills. In this case, I think as impressive as Beterbiev is, I think Bivol is the one that is an all-time great fighter that we are watching develop right in front of us. And I do think that he's the one that is going to pull out a career best performance. And we are going to see him win a pretty much clearer victory this time. I don't think we're going to get a knockout. If we do get a knockout, it's going to go the other way. It'll be like you said, Beterbiev knocks out Bivol, but I don't see that happening. I like Bivol to win a unanimous decision this time in a fight that's more exciting than the first one. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody takes the canvas.
Yeah, I definitely think this could be more exciting. Well, listen, we appreciate everybody stopping by. Now, remember, next week is a show that you're not going to want to miss. I'm going to give you all the reasons why Floyd Mayweather is not the best ever. And we are going to talk about, should boxing go back for championship fights to 15 rounds, the pros and cons of that. And of course, we'll talk about the results of this great card that's starting to shrink as we speak here. And then I believe Tank Davis is also fighting, so we'll break that one down too. So thanks for stopping by. Make sure you tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.